Time about how I was sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. So a little background information. This all happened last year. So originally I was working in a warehouse, but whenever COVID hit, lost my job, I had to get a new job. So I applied at Walmart in the electronics section because they paid more money, period. And on my second day, I finally went and started working in electronics. So they had asked some of the employees to show me around. So while this one employee was showing me around, he took me to the back where the photos were. Well, whenever I got back there, this employee named Terry said, "Oh, she's mine." I just laughed and brushed it off because I felt super uncomfortable and awkward. And he knew I was underage because my name tag was yellow. But even after that, he still kept coming up to me, calling me weird names, just being a total creep. Like, he would keep coming up to me and get super close to me to the point where I could literally feel him fucking breathing on my face. So of course I told my manager about it. They said he's done this before, so I was like, why is he still here? So they moved me to garden. And while I was working in the gardening section, I met this guy named Jordan. Part 2 of how I was sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. Something I forgot to mention in the first part, I reported Terry several times and they still did nothing about it. So like I said, then I met this kid Jordan, him and I started getting close, and work actually started to become fun. Well, finally, after a month, we decided that we were going to go out to lunch during work. So the day that we went out to lunch, he kept telling me that he needed to tell me something. But he was like beating around the bush the whole time. Like for some reason, he just couldn't get out what he wanted to tell me. But then he kept trying to change the subject like he wasn't the one who brought it up in the first place. I should have took that as a red flag before we went to lunch, but I didn't. So he keeps going on about it in the car, right? And then he's like, I'm not really 20, I'm 25 turning 26. So then for some reason after that, whenever he saw my mood change, this guy has the audacity to start touching my legs, rubbing my inner thigh and shit. I kept telling him to stop. I was like, what the doing? So then I told him I'm getting out of the car. And he says, I'm not going to let you. Part 3 of how I got sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. So like I said, he wouldn't let me out of the car, but then we got back to work. And then he had the audacity to keep asking if I was okay when he literally just sexually harassed me in the car. So I went to the bathroom, literally had a whole mental breakdown. I called my mom to come get me because I was not finna stay there. So the next time that I went back to work, I grabbed my stuff and I gave it to one of the workers to go and give to a manager and tell them that I was quitting. Well, one of the managers caught me walking out the back door and she was like, what's wrong? So I immediately broke down. I started telling her what was going on. And then a crowd of people came around us being nosy, listening to what I was saying. And she was like, you're not quitting. I'm going to take care of this. So she sent me home and she said that she would call me whenever it was taken care of. So 2 days goes past. I'm like, why hasn't she called? So then I call and I found out that she fired me. So I reported everything to Walmart ethic team and they just closed my case. They basically didn't do shit about it. Oh, and Jordan wasn't really a manager. He was a supervisor. Should I try to take this to court?
Storytime of how me and my siblings found a younger girl's dead body in our new house. So at the time I was 15, my younger sisters were 9 and 7. It was about a week into us moving into the house, and I was stuck babysitting my younger siblings while my parents were at work. So they started to get really annoying, so I told them we were going to play hide and seek, but never planned on going to find them. Well, about 10 minutes later, after I told them we were playing hide and seek, I heard my 7-year-old sister Abby scream for help. My 7-year-old sister thinks she's the toughest person ever, so when she screams or asks for help, she needs it. So I run to her, and in her hallway there is this closet, and in that closet apparently there was another door. And in that secret little room was a young girl's dead body tied up with rope with 2 dog holes in there.
This is my tattoo horror story. So this was for my 19th birthday, I believe. I really wanted like a tiny little crown tattoo on the back of my neck. I saw it on Pinterest and I was like, I need this tattoo. I need it right now. So I messaged my normal tattoo guy and he was already booked for like the next few days, and like I said, I wanted it right then and there, which was a very big mistake looking back at it. And it was a Sunday, so not many tattoo shops were even open in the first place, except for one. I wish I could just out this place. It is literally the most horrible place run by the most horrible people. But anyway, I go in. He told me that he could do it, but it has to be bigger because he can't do something that small. Which I've seen tattoo artists do tiny little tattoos, so that was the first red flag. But I was being impulsive and stubborn and I really wanted that tattoo right then and there, so I said okay. He put the stencil on me and it looked small, it looked good. After having him tattoo my neck for over an hour and a half, I started to get worried. Part 2 of my tattoo horror story. So I was in the tattoo shop for about 2.5 hours. This wasn't because he was tattooing me for 2 hours, but because he kept on taking short breaks. He kept on telling me that he had to take a smoke break. And I was like, okay, that's fine, do what you gotta do. It was only him and another guy working there, nobody else. And every time he would take a smoke break, him and his coworker would go outside. During like the third smoke break that they had, I had to pee, so I went to the bathroom. And when you're coming out of the bathroom, you're able to see outside, like through the window. So I noticed that the guy that was giving me my tattoo had a pill bottle in his hand. I kind of figured it was like Tylenol or something. But he was pouring it into his coworker's hand and he looked mad sus. So I go back and I wait in the room, sitting in the chair. Mind you, my friend was with me. And they took another 10-15 minutes to come back. And the way that I was sitting, my head was kind of like leaning down. So every time he would come back, the door was behind me, so I didn't really have to look at his face. And keep in mind that this was the longest break that he took the whole time. So after we left, my friend told me that time that he came back, he had white powder all in his nose and he was trying to wipe it off. And my tattoo got infected.
Story time about how my stalker defended me in a fight at a hot dog shop. A few years ago, when I was 19, I got a job at a hot dog shop. It had a phallic pun for a name in a somewhat shady area, and the shop was pretty well known and had some fantastically dark local lore. Rumors that the hot dogs were made out of horse meat, or that we had been closed down by the health inspector and reopened illegally, circulated. None of it was true, but people kept coming back for our delicious hot dogs. The community was diverse and sometimes dangerous, but people looked out for each other. One shift, early in the morning, I was working the register when a man comes in. He had long dark hair and thick stubble covering most of the lower half of his face. The shop was busy, he ordered and stepped aside but kept chatting with me. I was used to this. In an area with a lot of nightlife, I got comfortable with drunk ramblings and people hitting on me. I felt safe as long as I was on the other side of the counter. He was talking about how all the other men in the shop were posers and how beautiful I was. He also told me that he's a chef at a nearby restaurant, but I gave him a fake name just to be safe. I started seeing him often. It wasn't uncommon to have regulars, some even on a first name basis, but when my coworkers told me he had come in looking for me, asking for me when I wasn't there, I started to feel uneasy. Part 2 of how my stalker defended me in a fight at a hot dog shop. Every time I saw him, he seemed to be more intoxicated than the last. He'd walk in and say, "Hey beautiful," or "Hey pretty girl," so casually as though it was really my name. One night I finished my shift at 2 a.m. and I saw him on the other side of the sidewalk, watching me and waving. I tried not to think about how long he might have been there. My manager walked me to my car that night. Then one Saturday around 3 a.m. the shop was booming. There was a 40-minute wait for french fries. The tiny shop floor was crowded with people who had rolled out of any one of the nearby nightclubs, drunk and starving. A big, bulky man in his mid to late 20s started getting in my face. He had been waiting 30 minutes for the fries he ordered. I kept apologizing, but that just made him angrier. I was desperately trying to plan an escape from my position against the back wall behind the counter to the front door where I could get a bouncer's attention. There was no hope. The store was too crowded. That's when I hear a sloppy but familiar voice saying, "Leave her alone," and my stalker emerges from the crowd. He was only 5'5", but he fronts up against the massive man and they start fighting. Luckily, the commotion caught a bouncer's eye who ran in and swiftly de-escalated the situation. After that, I got a job somewhere else and moved on.
Storytime of how I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me with my cousin. My boyfriend and I had been together for 2.5 years. His family loved me and my family loved him and they expected us to get married. Well, last year when COVID started, we were actually in different countries, so we didn't see each other for 3 months. During those 3 months, we FaceTimed 4 times a day. And we were always texting. He happened to be quarantining in our hometown, so both of our families were in the same place. I was quarantined in a different country. One day my cousin calls me and tells me that she met a really nice guy on a dating website. I was so happy for her because she had had bad luck with guys. Every single week, her and I would catch up on the phone and she would tell me how much she liked this guy, and how amazing their dates were, and how amazing he was in bed, how sweet and considerate he was. I couldn't be happier for her. Well, when I finally get back home, my boyfriend is super distant and cold. So naturally, I called my cousin and complained. She told me to give him space. She said I should just leave him alone. And so like an idiot, I did leave him alone. One day my cousin calls me and tells me to come over for dinner. When I got there, my boyfriend's car was parked in her garage. I thought it was just her nice way of trying to get us to talk. I walk in and catch them doing the couch. So I walk in on my cousin and my boyfriend doing her couch. They quickly get up from the couch and get dressed. Of course, by that time, I'm in hysterics. I'm crying and yelling. My boyfriend instantly got on his knees and begged me for forgiveness. I went up to my cousin and I punched her right in the face. She wasn't expecting that. And I said, "Well, this is the guy that you've been dating, isn't it?" She said yes, and that she was just trying to find the best way to tell me. And so she just thought the best way to tell me was to get me to walk in on her and him doing the... I punched her again. My boyfriend came to her rescue though. Instantly went into hero mode, which made me even angrier, so I punched him too. I stormed out of her house and went back to my house. Well, I told my parents everything. And my dad went over to my uncle's house, my cousin's dad, and he told him everything. She was about to turn 19, so he took away her phone and her car. And I get a phone call from my ex. Part 3. So my lying, cheating ex calls me and explains to me why he actually slept with my cousin. He said that he was so lonely and that he didn't know what to do, and that the closest thing to me he could find was my cousin. Right, as if that was any comfort to me. He said I should be grateful that I didn't cheat with someone else. I told him he had totally betrayed my trust and that I could never ever trust him again. And then he confessed that she was pregnant and that his parents wanted them to get married. He said he just wanted to give me a heads up. Then he said that we could still be together but just not tell anyone, so basically he wanted me to be his side piece. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. It was like I didn't know this man. Guess what I did? I recorded the entire conversation. So I went straight to my cousin and I let her listen to it. She was so shocked. She couldn't believe that he would offer to have me as a side chick. Well, I also let my uncle listen to it. He went to my ex's house and beat him up. Honestly, that made me sad, but he deserved it. They now have a baby and he's gained 50 pounds. Trust your instincts, girl, and always record your conversation.
Story time about when my crazy celeb ex made me take a drug test because he thought I was cheating on him and stealing his drugs. At this point, we had been together about 6 months, but every time we would break up, one of us would go back. It was a very toxic cycle, but I was definitely ready to leave him at this point. I was just scared and I didn't know how to do it. He had this thing about his closet where he never left the door open and I could never go in. And he would specifically tell me not to go into his closet. He even carried his closet keys or hid them when I was around. Well, this one time I'm just chilling at his house and he comes up to me and he says, "Why did you open my safe?" And I said, "I can't even get into your closet where the safe is because I don't have keys. How would I be able to get into your safe without the combination?" Then he takes me into the closet, opens the safe, and shows me what's in there. And it's a bunch of illegal stuff that I really didn't know was there. Of course, I started to get really nervous and scared. And he accused me of stealing money and drugs and giving it to my pimp because he had a theory that I was an escort or a prostitute. And he said he couldn't trust me any longer and took me to CVS to get a drug test. Part 2. So he takes me to CVS, and on the way there, he's yelling and telling me that if I don't pass this test, we're totally through. I told him that I would pass the test for sure, but that we were through anyway. He said he was convinced that I was a drug addict and that he needed to get away from me. Mind you, he's the one with the closet full of drugs. We get to CVS, I'm bawling my eyes out and my hands and knees are trembling. As we're entering the CVS, this man comes up to us, out of nowhere, like an angel, and he says to me, "Are you okay? Do you need some water?" And then he looks at my ex and he's like, "Hey, maybe you guys need to, sit down and talk things through." Of course, my ex answered for me and he said, "No, she's fine, don't worry." I must have looked like I needed help. The man kept close and stood at the register the whole time, kind of watching us. We got the drug test and then he rushed me back to the car. We drive back in silence to his house. And the whole time I'm just thinking, I don't need this, just leave him. I pee on the stick and then I give it back to him. He starts crying and saying that it's over because he knows it's going to come back positive. I got my things in line. A few days later, he comes to my apartment and he's really angry. Part 3, knocks on my door, I open, and the look on his face is just of pure anger. He throws the drug test results on the couch and says, "How did you pass?" And I said, "I don't do drugs." He watched me pee, you guys. He watched me pee on that stick. He said I must have taken something and there was no way I could pass the test. Then I just started yelling at him and I told him to get out. You guys, he was shocked. I had never kicked him out of my apartment before. He was shocked. Then he started crying and he said, "I can't believe you're kicking me out of your apartment." And I told him, "You made me go to CVS, take a drug test, I passed the test and you're still mad? You're never going to trust me and this isn't going to work." He said, "Of course we can work on it, you just have to stop lying to me." After I kicked him out, I felt relief. I thought it could really be over. A few days later, he calls me apologizing and crying, begging me to go back. When you're in love and you start seeing red flags, you just will do anything to ignore them. I did. Don't do the same thing.
This is the time I had a racist Uber driver. So for my birthday this year, we decided to go to Cheesecake Factory and walk around the mall after we drank. It was me, my boyfriend, and his 2 friends, who are also my friends. Obviously, we couldn't drive there if we were drinking, so we called an Uber driver. The first Uber driver was nice. He was cool. Then the Uber driver that picked us up from the Cheesecake Factory, different story. Right off the bat, he looked like a clown. He pulls up in what looks like a white 1998 Honda Odyssey minivan. If you're curious, just look up what that looks like on Google Images. And he had all these stickers on it. Taxi stickers, obviously the Uber sticker, Lyft sticker, Trump stickers. And when we get in the minivan, he's wearing a legit top hat. Like when you see a chauffeur wear a top hat in the movies, and a striped white and black outfit. He had an Alexa plugged into his car, and he put post-it notes up that say, in quotes, "Say Alexa play." So then my friend was like, "Hey Alexa, play Pop Smoke." I'm sorry, I really needed to give you this backstory. This is the time I had a racist Uber driver part 2. So we were all bumping to Pop Smoke, and we were all teed. So we decided to mess with him. We started asking him random questions, like, "Oh, how do you like driving as an Uber driver?" Or, "What's your craziest experience with Uber?" So we get to chit-chatting, and then my friend Mike decides to pretend that he was a drug dealer and starts bragging that he bought a brand new 2020 Audi with his dealer money, which he didn't, and he's not a dealer. And the guy's like, "Yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of drug dealers." And we were like, "How did you know? Like, what happened?" And he was like, "I've picked up my fair share of black people." And I was like, "Excuse me, sir, what?" What did he say? But not for real, I was tight. I was like, excuse me, what?" And I was like, "So, what, how?" And mind you, I was teed. And when I'm teed, I kind of just say what's on my mind. And I was like, "So you think every black person is a drug dealer?" And he was like, "Pretty much." So when he goes to drop us off, I poured out my leftover fettuccine alfredo in his car and screamed he was a racist piece of shit.
Storytime of how I figured out that my sister was trying to kill me. So me and my sister were best friends when we were little, but she was a very, very jealous person. So years and years go on, but her jealousy seems to start to grow. So I never really thought about it until I found out that she really wanted me dead. But throughout the years, she would do little things to get me hurt. For example, she pushed me off the top of our treehouse and I ended up breaking my arm. But every time I got hurt, my family would baby me and she would get even more mad. So at this time, we're about 16 years old, and I had to go in her room to get her laundry. And under her laundry, I found her diary, or journal, or whatever you call it. I was flipping through the pages, I found out some interesting and crazy things. Then one was named The Perfect Murder. What an original name. She had this big, huge dresser in her room. She went into a lot of detail about how she was going to kill me. But it stated that she was going to push the dresser on top of me and jump on it until Part 2 of I found out that my sister was trying to kill me. Continuing on with the story, after I read what I read in her diary, I decided it was best to keep it to myself. So about a month and a half later, I start to think to myself and I'm like, okay, maybe she's not actually going to do it. Y'all, I don't know why, but I was literally not scared that my sister was like about to kill me. So about 2.5 months after I read what I read in her diary, she calls me into her room and in this fakest voice ever goes, "Sissy, why are you being so distant from me?" I just looked at her like she was crazy. Then she goes, "I know you read my diary." At that exact moment, she looked psycho. I don't know what I was thinking, but right after she said that, my reflex was to knock her out. So I knocked her out, then I stomped on her head. I called my mom into the room and read her the diary, or whatever the heck my sister put in there. Mind you, while I'm reading my mom this diary, she's still knocked out on the floor. My mom then continues to say she's going to put her in a mental hospital. So to this day, my sister's in a mental hospital, and if you're listening to this and you ever get out, please don't kill me. I'm actually living an amazing life right now.
Let me tell y'all how I ruined my uncle's engagement proposal. So basically, my uncle threw a little get-together, invited my family, obviously. At that get-together, he was planning on proposing to his soon-to-be fiance. He brought out a really big cake, and that cake had whipped cream on it. Okay, best believe I dived in. Listen, I'm not a big fan of icing, but I might do a backflip for some whipped cream. Everyone got a slice of cake, and it was gone. The plate was completely empty. My uncle starts panicking and looking around. Everyone starts eyeing him because he's acting really weird. Mind you, nobody knew that he was going to propose to his girlfriend. Me and my family end up having to leave early because of my little sister's ballet ceremony. Eventually, my dad gets a call from my uncle basically saying that he was planning the proposal and the ring is nowhere to be found. Now, where did he put the ring, you may ask? Well, it was in the center of the cake and it was supposed to be a big reveal once everybody took their piece. My parents come to me and ask me if I've seen it anywhere. I told them that I had no idea. And all of a sudden, ooh, I gotta take a shit. When I got to the bathroom, I was blowing up the toilet, okay? I felt something real rough pop out my booty hole. I turn around to look cause it hurt and I see a ring in the toilet bowl floating amidst my diarrhea. Part 2 of how I ruined my uncle's engagement proposal while I take off my makeup. So like I said, after I ate the cake at the engagement party for my uncle's proposal, I got really bad diarrhea. And when I go to the bathroom, I shit out the ring. So a lot was going through my mind at this moment. I didn't know if I was supposed to grab it. Do I reach into my diarrhea and take it out? Do I rinse it and then give it back? Or do I just flush and act like I didn't see shit? Who would really want a ring that was sitting in somebody's diarrhea? Even if I rinsed it, even if I washed it with soap, it still had the diarrhea particles on it. There's all different types of creases in rings. So best believe I flushed that shit. Act like that whole thing did not just happen. Well, things took a turn for the worse once my uncle said that he paid $10,000 for that ring. I felt extremely guilty. I'd rather feel guilty than admit to anybody what happened. Until this day, nobody in my family knows what happened to that ring. I will live with this secret until the day that I die.